Recently, Patrick Bet David, the man behind the PBD podcast with millions of subscribers across X, YouTube, and even Apple Podcasts, recently shocked the market with a $1,000 per XRP price prediction. And in a short video, he explains how this would be possible. But is it? Is he reading a script? Does he have a vested interest in pumping the price of XRP? And as much as everyone watching this video would love to see an XRP price pump to $1,000, how much truth to his statement is there? Still, markets are getting giddy over one major piece of news that's likely to set the stage through the end of the year, as the SEC is set to settle its case and potentially even drop the appeal with Ripple. This would finally give major institutions the green light to not only buy and hold XRP for its clients, but update their financial systems and bring them on rails using the XRP ledger, or XRPL for short. And a new major acquisition from Ripple for a whopping $250 million will revolutionize the game in their technology and how it is used. We have a lot of exciting developments to cover in this video, as well as some on-chain analytics and price action. So let's get into it. And as always, if you're feeling blessed and bullish, comment 777. And if you're going to be the wealthiest person in your family tree, smash the subscribe button. Hello, my friend, and welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, my name is Paul, and you can find me on Twitter or X at PauliDeFi, PauliDeFi. Here we have the man himself behind Valuetainment, Patrick Bet David, and in this video, he actually shares a bit on XRP. Let's have a listen.
For someone that doesn't want to specialize in this, it is something you have to pay attention to. Here's why. Let's just say XRP decides to, all of a sudden, they replace SWIFT. Let's say that happens. If XRP replaces SWIFT and FedNow, you know what happens? Let me give you some numbers here. XRP's ledger processes transactions in 3 to 5 seconds at nearly no cost, making it significantly faster and cheaper than SWIFT. So, SWIFT processes $5 trillion daily, or 1.25 quadrillion annually. If you didn't know what that was, quadrillion annually, SWIFT. If XRP captures 5 to 10% of volume, let's just say 10% of volume, $125 trillion annually. The demand for XRP, by the way, it could be any of these other technologies we're talking about. Analysts estimate that a $10 trillion market cap could push XRP's price to $100 per token, with full replacement potentially driving it up to $1,000 there. For someone.
And so there it is. If there is a full replacement of SWIFT and the FedNow financial system for the tune of $1.25 quadrillion, and it's all being moved only as the XRP token, which would create major demand, then the price would go to $1,000 per token. However, I want to be clear, this is something that he shares in the video, and there is so much conjecture. And here's why I do not think that what he's sharing is actually even close to realistic. But let's have a listen exactly to what he says.
Let's just say XRP decides to, all of a sudden, they replace SWIFT. Let's say that.
So he's saying, let's say all of a sudden they decide to replace SWIFT. Well, the reality is SWIFT itself is a major business. And in past videos, I've actually shown you how many global money transfers they consistently do using their fin system. And here in the near future, moving over directly to the ISO 222 standard of messaging, which will actually make them far more efficient, and settlement will be a heck of a lot quicker, which is also more data rich. That said, because it is a massive business, they are extremely unlikely to just give that up. And by the way, when they move $1 quadrillion a year, they still only profited just shy of $1 billion after taxes. We saw that in their 2023 report. We have yet to see their 2024 report, but I expect that to be released soon. In other words, they are moving everyone else's money, and there are a million different forms of money that they move. They are using their messaging system and their infrastructure and technology to do it. I would argue it'd be no different with Ripple, but why would SWIFT just give up that entire business to Ripple? At the end of the day, Ripple, even if it is a better technology with faster settlement, is going to have to compete for the business of these banks. And many of these banks won't want to buy and hold an asset that's volatile like Ripple, even if it does pump, because at the end of the day, if it goes up, what goes up must come down. They will likely want to do this using stablecoins. And so the real business model would be to integrate stablecoins or the RLUSD stablecoin. And yes, we have a lot of really positive developments and news surrounding that, which we will cover here in this video. But what I will say is that they can't just decide to replace Swift. They actually have to compete for the business from Swift. And by the way, I have yet to see any credible or verifiable information that leads me to believe that Swift and XRP are already integrated into the same systems. Just because something is ISO 222 compliant does not mean it's going to replace something. It simply means that you can use or send that token on Rails using that system. In other words, if Swift wanted to transfer XRP from one bank to another, they could using those rails. Now, speaking of stablecoins, Senator Haggerty introduced a new stablecoin bill, and our very own Jeremy Hogan, who's an attorney that has covered the Ripple and SEC case and lawsuit closely over the last couple of years, basically said he read and skimmed through the Genius Act and how in this act it addresses a lot of things. We're talking about US federal laws, we're talking about foreign laws and state laws. And to make a long story short, you can go ahead and check it out for yourself, but even he says it is quite meaty. So we are going to summarize. This act would essentially be the death of USDT in the United States, and the reserve requirements, AML requirements, all fall neatly for USDC, which will likely take over as number one if we can no longer use USDT in the United States. And then this would allow and open up the market for RLUSD to be adopted in a major way, because guess what? You can't just have a system where there aren't enough stable coins. Ultimately, this is a vacuum and it must be filled. And the crazy thing is the demand is only going to grow over the years. Now, when you combine that with Ripple's business model, they recently spent $250 million to acquire a platform called Omni Network. And why Omni Network is so important is because their custodial team will now be able to use what we call intents. Now, an intent is what one of the founders calls the future of the entire financial industry. And obviously, this will use the XRP ledger. And so although many people on this channel haven't really messed around with a bunch of DeFi products and DeFi wallets and all sorts of different platforms, the majority of people probably just buy and hold and trade on something like Coinbase or Kraken or Binance. You also have to think that right now we do live in a crypto dystopia where everything is fractionalized, right? Users have to think about gas, different chains, bridging to get anything done. It's a huge pain. So what if you no longer had to do that and you could just use intents? You could specify what you want to get done, and then the intents will take care of the rest. In other words, this is what it used to look like on the right hand side. If I wanted to do something in the crypto world, in order to literally buy strawberries for $10, I had to do one transaction, drive to the grocery store, do another transaction, park the car, do a third transaction, produce section, $10 for strawberries, drive home, park car again. There are too many transactions and it becomes very complex and creates a lot of friction. So instead, you could create an intent that says, get me a bunch of strawberries for $10, and that would all be done in one simple transaction. In other words, Ripple is designing their entire custody platform around the concept of intents. When you combine this with new legislation that favors RLUSD in the stablecoin, and then you also combine that with Ripple's other business models surrounding global banking, remittances, and money transfers, I could easily see Ripple being a $20 to even a potentially $100 token in the next decade. It could happen in 4 years, it could happen in 7 years, it could happen in 10 years. Listen, we don't pretend to be fortune tellers on this channel. Nobody knows what the future holds, and nobody knows if another player is going to come along and absolutely dominate the market. Since we don't know and we can't predict this, what we can say is that Ripple's investing in the right ways and doing the right things, even if it takes a little bit longer than we expect, to become a dominant player in the market, as they already are one of the largest players in the market. I believe that they're going to stay on top if they continue to do things like this. Now, before we continue with the rest of the video, if you haven't already, head on over to bullrunners.com to check out Altcoin Pro University. This is your one-stop shop for all the right tools, training, and resources to hit your crypto goals this bull market cycle of 2025. Whether your goal is to be a multi-millionaire in crypto or simply to pay off some debts, whatever the case may be, we can help you to do it. Now, the reality is we can't guarantee you any results, but the information inside is going to be bar none some of the best in the space, as we have a community that is all paying to be here. These people are taking it very serious, but it's not just the community. We also pay and actually retain some of the best experts in all of the space. We're talking analysts and researchers that are constantly updating this group. So not only do we have a library that we're consistently going to be adding courses to, we also share with you altcoin picks. We do live calls with technical analysis that I actually host every single Tuesday that I only do inside of this group, and teach them everything they need to know to look at a chart and use charting platforms properly. But we also share DeFi yields that you can take advantage of, and even airdrop alerts to get free money in crypto. So if that all sounds interesting to you and you want to check it out, go to bullrunners.com, because every single day you wait, you could be missing out on another call or another piece of alpha. As I said, we have all sorts of things like consistent market updates, new altcoins, even meme coins that actually have real potential. And at the end of the day, we always tell you at some point in time, some of these are going to be risky, but we share with you exactly how to approach that risk. And the list goes on. So go ahead and go to bullrunners.com to check it out. We have virtually everything you would ever need to be a pro in crypto, and I'll see you on the other side. Now let's talk about the SEC v. Ripple case and whether or not there's an actual resolution around the corner. As Eleanor Tourette, who is actually a pretty solid reporter, and even David Sachs, the crypto czar, has made note of the fact that she gets a lot of information and facts right more often than not, basically stated that two well-placed sources tell her that the SEC versus Ripple case is in the process of wrapping up and could be over soon. So this has created a lot of waves in the XRP community. Now the reality is we've already covered this before, but let's just rehash it. The Ripple's legal team is negotiating for more favorable terms regarding the August District Court ruling, which imposed a $125 million fine on the company and included a permanent injunction preventing the company from selling XRP to institutional investors. However, they probably don't want that to be the case, and because the SEC has been basically wiping the slate clean on every crypto firm that it's targeted, Ripple figured, let's take advantage of this. We don't want to accept all of the rulings. The only ruling we're really happy with is the fact that XRP itself is not deemed a security. However, they want to be able to probably sell to institutional investors and not be considered securities in that manner. This would actually allow them to go public at some point in the future. Now, the reason it's taken so long is because there's no real playbook for this kind of thing. So that said, we're getting pretty close, and she typically gets a lot of really solid information. And upon that news, the price did pump just a bit and created quite a bit of a wick to the upside, as well as the next green bullish engulfing candle. However, this leads me to believe that if that's all the price could do within that news, in terms of its time frame, then things are not looking too great right now for XRP's price action. On news like that, you typically want to see the price pump a bit harder, because by the time we actually see anything happen with the SEC, in the case of a settlement or some sort of a injunction, at the end of the day, it would likely already be priced in. Again, you typically want to buy the rumor and sell the news. And here's why. I think we're just seeing a lot of strong resistance right here at that $2.30 or 40 cent range, all the way down to about $2.25, which is why we've probably failed to break above that range. Especially when I go ahead and pull up a VRVP, you can see that a lot of volume has traded in a cliff all the way up to 250. So that said, it's going to be very hard now that we're back below and at that $2 range we've been touching quite often down here, but back below that 225 range, which I've talked about in multiple videos. It's still going to be very difficult on any news to break above unless regardless of course the tides actually shift at a macro level. And right now, from a macro time frame, or better yet, a macro perspective, markets are still relatively skittish surrounding the Trump tariffs. And so when you take a look at Bitcoin, Bitcoin has actually already broken down quite heavily. Let me go ahead and put up a range of support and resistance. What used to be a support is now a resistance, and Bitcoin is actually broken down harder than XRP. So yes, XRP is relatively more strong than Bitcoin, but if Bitcoin continues to break down to that $71,000 level and even potentially to the $62,000 level, then things are not going to look too good for XRP even upon positive news. This leads me to believe that we actually have further downside in a longer term or macro uptrend. Yes, we are trending up from a longer term perspective, but if we break down on Bitcoin right back down into this range here, then it's highly likely that on something like XRP, we will do the same and potentially come back into that $1.46 to 50 cent range, as this would be our major support from the prior bull market highs of 2021. Now, this theory, I believe, is further confirmed by the liquidation maps. If you come over to CoinGlass and go to liquidation maps, you scroll on down to the exchange liquidation maps, and I can go ahead and turn off the prices at which Binance, OKX, and Bybit liquidations would be set. I come over to XRP. I put it on a 7-day time frame. And then, by the way, when you look at this thing, you can see that the majority of traders are still short, as you'd have about $265 million of shorts liquidated at the price of $249, while only $153 million would be liquidated at $197 on the long side. So although this might look counterintuitive, what we're basically telling you is we have another $100+ million on shorts, and typically it's very hard to fight against that trend. It's been like this pretty consistently, and the fact that this news has failed to make XRP break above that $2.30 some cent range leads me to believe we have further downside at play. This might be, though, the next major dump into a range where you'd really want to start to accumulate, because when you look at exchange reserves on something like Bitcoin, and let me go ahead and zoom in from the previous all-time high at $106,000, and arguably even in the March 2024 high of $73,000, you can see that more and more Bitcoin has been removed from exchanges, and arguably even more so through this range, none has really been added, which leads me to believe that not only are investors accumulating, but they're simply not dumping on exchanges to sell. So whenever we get more demand that enters the market, while this thing remains flat, eventually you're going to see it decline yet again, as it's always been in a decline since the price of about $75,000 back in November of last year. This leads me to believe that we are in a longer term uptrend, while we might experience some intermediate term downside. So I am holding on to some cash right now and ready to deploy it when I see a last local dump and a lot of fear and panic in the markets. And by the way, this is all stuff that I teach and train personally on our live calls in Tuesdays, only for our Altcoin Pro University members. Again, if that sounds interesting to you, you want to check it out, go to bullrunners.com. Link is in the description below. Thanks so much for watching the video, my friend. I hope you enjoyed it. Be sure to subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye.